My name is Ali. I used to live in a small town in Vietnam working as a bank manager. But now I live in Bangkok with my family. Life in Bangkok is busier, noisier, and faster, but I didn't mind. After all, it was a fresh start. However, there's one memory I can't escape, no matter where I go. It's a story I've never shared with anyone, until now. Years ago, when I was 23, I needed a job. I wanted to save up for my family. One evening, as I walked through the town square, I saw a bright red sign, Wendy's hiring night shift staff. The lights of the restaurant flickered a little, and I remember thinking it was just an old electrical system. I decided to apply. It seemed like an easy enough job, cooking burgers and cleaning tables. I met the manager the next day. His name was Mr. Than. He looked normal at first glance, but something about him made me uncomfortable. He never blinked when he spoke to me, and his smile was too wide, like he was forcing it. He didn't even ask me many questions, just handed me a uniform and said, "Welcome aboard." I didn't think much of it back then. I told myself I was being silly, but if I knew what was coming, I would have run far away and never looked back. My first shift started at 10 p.m. Mr. Than called me to the back office to explain the rules. "Ali, the night shift is different," he said, his voice so calm it gave me goosebumps. "There are a few extra things you need to follow." He handed me a piece of paper. On it were 7 rules, neatly typed. 1. Always greet customers with a smile. 2. Never leave your station unless instructed. 3. At exactly 12:01 a.m., a woman named Lynn will come in. Do not speak to her unless she speaks to you first. 4. If you hear a scream from the kitchen at 12:20 a.m., do not investigate. 5. Never let anyone enter through the back door. 6. If Lynn asks you to look at her, do it immediately and don't break eye contact until she tells you to stop. 7. Keep a small bottle of perfume in your pocket. It masks your scent. I laughed nervously. "This is a joke, right?" I asked. Mr. Than's smile didn't waver. "No joke. Follow the rules, and you'll be fine." I wanted to quit right there, but I needed the money. So I nodded and took the paper. The restaurant was quiet that night. A few customers came and went, and I started to relax. By midnight, it was just me and the hum of the kitchen machines. Then, at 12:01 a.m., the door creaked open. A woman walked in. She was tall, her black hair flowing like ink. Her eyes were dark and her skin looked almost pale. She didn't say anything, just stood at the counter staring at me. I froze. "Hi, welcome to Wendy's," I stammered, forcing a smile. She didn't respond. I remembered the rule. Don't speak unless she speaks first. So, I waited. After a long pause, she said, "Do you like working here, Ali?" Her voice was soft but cold, like she already knew the answer. Yes, I lied. She tilted her head, smiled faintly, and walked to a corner table. I couldn't focus after that. My hands were shaking as I cleaned the counter. Then, at 12:20 a.m., I heard it, a scream. It came from the kitchen, sharp and loud. My first instinct was to run and see what was happening, but I remembered the rule. Do not investigate. I stayed put, my heart pounding. The scream stopped as suddenly as it started. The night dragged on and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. At one point, I turned around and nearly dropped the tray I was holding. Lynn was standing right behind me, her dark eyes locked onto mine. "Why aren't you smiling, Ali?" she asked softly. I forced a grin, though my face felt frozen. She leaned closer, so close I could feel her icy breath. "Look at me," she whispered. I remembered the rule. Do not break eye contact. I stared into her eyes, which seemed deeper than the ocean. My vision blurred, and for a moment I felt like I was falling. Then she smiled, revealing teeth sharper than any I'd ever seen. "Good," she said, stepping back. "You're learning." When she finally walked away, I felt like I could breathe again. But as I turned to the counter, I noticed something horrifying. The bottle of perfume in my pocket had fallen out. It was 3 a.m. and I decided I couldn't do this anymore. I needed to leave. But as I reached for the door, Lynn appeared in front of me. "Leaving already?" she asked, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. Her smile was wider now, and her hands were not hands. They were claws. I stepped back, trembling. "Please, let me go," I begged. She laughed, a sound that echoed through the empty restaurant. "You broke a rule, Ollie. No perfume." I panicked and grabbed the only thing I could think of, the bottle of ketchup on the counter. I squeezed it into her face and she shrieked, her smile vanishing for the first time. I ran out of the restaurant and didn't stop until I reached the main road. To this day, I don't know what Lynn was or why those rules existed. But every time I see a Wendy's, my stomach turns, and I walk the other way. I'll never forget that night, the night I learned the hard way that some jobs aren't worth the risk. My name is Sharuk, and I never thought a part-time job during my college years would leave me with memories so haunting. Back then, I was far from the comfortable life I enjoy today. I was broke, drowning in student loans, and desperate for work. When a Wendy's on the outskirts of Bridgewood called me to join their night shift, I didn't hesitate. Bills were piling up, and this was my only chance to stay afloat. I arrived at Wendy's on a chilly October night. The place stood alone on a lonely stretch of road, surrounded by dark, silent woods. The parking lot was half lit, and the red glow of the Wendy's sign flickered slightly. My old beat-up car wheezed to a stop, and I took a deep breath before stepping inside. The manager, Ethan, greeted me with a tight handshake. He was a tall man with a sharp jawline and an unsettling calmness about him. "Welcome to the team," he said, leading me inside. The restaurant was spotless, yet the silence felt unnatural, like the walls were holding their breath. Ethan wasted no time explaining the rules. His voice was firm, and his words stuck with me. Rule 1, there's a hammer in the supply closet. Only touch it if something happens. Something like what? I asked, confused. Rule 2, he continued, ignoring my question. If anyone comes in after midnight and asks about the freezer, don't answer. Keep it short and send them away. The third rule made my stomach twist. If you hear any noises from the kitchen after 1 a.m., stay put. Don't investigate. No exceptions. I laughed nervously. Is this some kind of initiation prank? Ethan's face didn't move. You'll understand soon enough. My shift started quietly enough. I was working with Sarah, a bubbly girl with dark curls who always seemed to be humming some old tune, and Jake, a stocky guy who barely spoke a word. Sarah was quick to warn me about the odd rules. It's not a joke, she said, wiping down the counters. Just follow them, Sharuk. Trust me. As midnight rolled in, the restaurant emptied. By then, Sarah had shared stories of weird customers and strange noises. Once someone came in at 2 a.m., she said in a hushed voice. They asked to see what was in the freezer. Ethan almost threw them out. Jake grunted in agreement. We don't mess with the freezer, he muttered, flipping a basket of fries. At 12:30, a black car rolled into the parking lot. Its headlights were off, but the engine rumbled quietly. I watched as the driver sat there, unmoving. You better go tell them we're closed, Sarah said, nudging me. The air outside felt heavy as I walked toward the car. The driver rolled down the window, revealing a pale man with dark circles under his eyes. Closed? He asked, his voice flat. Yes, sir, I said, trying to sound polite but firm. He smiled faintly. What's in the freezer? My heart raced. I stepped back, shaking my head. Just food. Nothing else. Please leave. His smile faded as he stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then, without a word, he drove off. By 1 a.m., the restaurant was dead silent. The clock ticked loudly, filling the empty space. I was cleaning the counters when I heard it, a faint, metallic scrape coming from the kitchen. I froze, my sponge dripping water onto the floor. "Did you hear that?" I asked Sarah. She glanced toward the kitchen but kept cleaning. "Ignore it," she whispered. The sound came again, louder this time, like something heavy being dragged across the tiles. Jake's face turned pale, and he gripped the spatula tighter. "Don't go back there," he said firmly. My curiosity got the better of me. "It could be an animal or something," I reasoned, grabbing a flashlight. "Shahrukh, no!" Sarah hissed, grabbing my arm. "You don't want to see what's back there." The scraping grew louder, almost rhythmic, and was now accompanied by faint whispers. My hands shook as I set the flashlight down. Whatever it was, I didn't want to know. At 2:30, the man from the black car returned. This time, he parked and walked straight to the front door. His face was pale and his eyes were empty, like he wasn't really human. He knocked gently, his knuckles tapping the glass in a strange pattern. "We're closed," Ethan called out, stepping into the lobby. The man didn't respond. Instead, he pressed his face to the glass, grinning. "What's in the freezer?" he asked, louder this time. Ethan grabbed the hammer from the supply closet and walked toward the door. "Get out of here," he growled. The man's grin widened, but he slowly backed away into the shadows. "That's it," I said, grabbing my jacket. "I'm done. I'm not staying here another minute." Ethan blocked the exit. "You can't leave. Not yet. You don't understand what's at stake." "What are you talking about?" I shouted. Ethan didn't answer. His eyes darted toward the security cameras. The monitors showed movement near the freezer. Against every instinct, I followed Ethan to the kitchen. The whispers grew louder as we approached the freezer. Ethan unlocked the door and flung it open, revealing a dark, empty space. But it wasn't empty for long. A shadowy figure stepped out, its body twisting unnaturally. Its hollow eyes locked onto me and it smiled, a cruel, inhuman smile. I stumbled back as Ethan swung the hammer at the figure, yelling for me to run. I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted out of the kitchen and into the parking lot where Sarah and Jake were already waiting in my car. We drove for miles without stopping, leaving the glowing red sign of Wendy's far behind. The next day, I heard the restaurant had shut down due to health violations. No mention was made of Ethan, the shadow, or the man in the black car. Even now, years later, I can still hear those whispers when I'm alone. The memory of that shadowy figure haunts me, and I can't help but wonder, what was really in that freezer? My name is Laura, and this is a story I'll never forget. Back in 2018, I worked at a Wendy's in a small town. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills while I was saving up for college. I mostly worked the night shift, which was quiet. Most of the time, it was just me, my coworker Mike, and the manager Donna. One night, the air outside felt strange, like something was off. I couldn't put my finger on it. The restaurant was empty except for one man sitting at a corner booth. He was tall, with unkempt hair and an unsettling smile. He'd been there for hours, sipping the same drink and watching the clock. Mike nudged me. "That guy's giving me the creeps," he whispered. I nodded, pretending not to notice the man staring at us. "Just keep busy," I said, trying to ignore the pit in my stomach. Around midnight, Donna went to the back to do inventory. Mike and I stayed up front, cleaning tables and restocking supplies. The man finally got up and walked to the counter. "Can I get another drink?" he asked, his voice low and scratchy. I handed him a cup, avoiding eye contact. His hand brushed mine, and it was ice cold. "Thanks," he muttered before heading back to his booth. When I glanced over a few minutes later, he was gone. The cup sat there, untouched. But something else caught my eye. A small black notebook. I picked it up and flipped it open. Inside were pages of scribbled names, dates, and strange symbols. At the bottom of one page, my name was written. My heart raced. I showed it to Mike, and his face turned pale. "Laura," he whispered, "that's today's date." Mike and I decided to show the notebook to Donna. We headed to the back, calling her name, but she didn't answer. The storage room door was slightly open, so we peeked inside. The lights flickered, casting long shadows. "Donna," I called out again. There was no response. Then we heard it, a faint thud coming from below. Mike pointed to the basement door. "No way," I said, shaking my head. "I'm not going down there." "We have to," Mike insisted. "What if she's hurt?" Reluctantly, I followed him. The basement stairs creaked under our weight as we descended into the dimly lit space. The air was damp and smelled of something metallic, almost like rust. At the bottom of the stairs, we found rows of shelves stacked with cleaning supplies and old equipment. But something felt wrong. There was a large metal cage in the corner, and it was covered with a dirty tarp. "What the?" Mike whispered, stepping closer. Before we could lift the tarp, we heard a voice behind us. "You shouldn't be down here." We spun around to see the man from the booth standing at the top of the stairs holding a hammer. His face twisted into a grin, and he started descending slowly. Mike grabbed my arm and pulled me behind a stack of boxes. "Stay quiet," he whispered. The man walked around the basement, dragging the hammer across the floor. The sound echoed, making my skin crawl. "I know you're down here," he sang, his voice playful and taunting. My heart pounded as I tried to think. Donna was nowhere to be seen, and we were trapped. Then I spotted something on the shelf above us, a bottle of cleaning solution. I grabbed it, hoping it might be useful. Mike whispered, "We need to distract him and get to the stairs." Before I could respond, the man stopped in front of the cage. "Do you want to see what's inside?" he asked, lifting the tarp. Beneath it were bloodstains and chains. I bit back a scream. The man turned suddenly and his eyes locked onto us. "There you are," he shouted, raising the hammer. Mike shoved the shelf, causing it to topple over. Bottles and tools crashed to the floor, creating a barrier between us and the man. "Run!" Mike yelled, pulling me toward the stairs. We scrambled up the stairs, but the man was fast. He swung the hammer, narrowly missing Mike. I grabbed a broomstick from the corner and jabbed it at him, buying us a few seconds to get through the door. We slammed it shut and locked it, but we knew it wouldn't hold for long. "What now?" I asked, panicking. Mike looked around, grabbing a first aid kit from the counter. "We need to call the police," he said. I reached for my phone, but it was gone. He must have taken it, I realized. Suddenly, there was a loud crash as the man broke through the door. Blood smeared across his face, and he looked furious. "You can't run forever," he shouted. We bolted out of the restaurant and into the parking lot. A car was parked nearby, Donna's car, but she wasn't inside. The man chased us, but Mike found a brick and hurled it at him, hitting his shoulder. "Get in," Mike yelled as we jumped into the car. He hot-wired it, and we sped off into the night. We drove for miles until we reached the police station. When we told them what happened, they sent officers to Wendy's immediately. The next day, we learned the truth. The man was a serial killer who had been targeting employees at fast food restaurants. Donna's body was found in the cage, along with others who had gone missing over the years. I couldn't stop thinking about the notebook with my name in it. The killer had been watching me for weeks, maybe months. The thought made my skin crawl. Even now, I can't walk into a Wendy's without feeling a knot in my stomach. The smell of the food, the sight of the booths, it all brings back that night. But I survived, and I'll never let my guard down again. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see his face and hear his voice. You can't run forever. Hi, I'm Mark, and this story still haunts me every time I pass by a Wendy's. I used to play baseball for my college team, so after practice my appetite was massive. One night I had just finished a late game, and my girlfriend Emma was waiting for me at her apartment. We were both starving, but since it was past 10 p.m., most restaurants were closed. The Wendy's on the corner of Maple Street was still open, and we decided to grab some burgers before heading back. This Wendy's always seemed a little off to me. It wasn't run down, but something about the dim parking lot and the flickering neon sign made it feel like it had been forgotten. The place was empty, save for a couple of cars at the drive-thru. Emma and I parked and walked inside. The air felt heavy as soon as we entered. The staff at the counter didn't look like they wanted to be there. Their faces were pale, their movements slow, like they were puppets being forced to work. Emma leaned in and whispered, "Mark, doesn't this place feel strange?" I shrugged it off. I was too hungry to care. We ordered our food, but when it arrived, Emma immediately frowned. "There's something wrong with my burger," she said, pulling out a long strand of red hair from the sandwich. My stomach dropped. I looked back at the counter, where a woman with pale red hair and sharp eyes stood watching us. She smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Let's just go," Emma whispered, sliding her tray away. "We can eat at home." But I wasn't about to leave without saying something. I grabbed the burger, marched to the counter, and placed it down. "Excuse me," I said, trying to sound polite. "There's a hair in this." The cashier, a young man who looked like he hadn't slept in days, stared at me blankly. Then, without saying a word, he turned and walked to the back. A few seconds later, a large woman emerged. She had red braids that hung like limp ropes and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I hear there's a problem with your meal," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. Her name tag read, Ms. Wendy. "Yeah, there's a hair in the burger," I said. She laughed, loud and sharp. "Oh, that happens sometimes. You know how kitchens are, but don't worry, I'll make it right." She turned to the staff behind her. "Who's been careless, The employees froze, their eyes darting nervously. Ms. Wendy grabbed one of them by the collar, a skinny boy who couldn't have been older than 18. She yanked off his cap, revealing messy hair. "You're shedding all over my kitchen," she snapped. "Wait," I said, stepping back. "It's just a mistake. No need to..." Ms. Wendy turned to me, her eyes narrowing. "Stay out of this, boy. You wouldn't want to see what happens to rule breakers." Her smile returned, wider this time. "Now why don't you and your little girlfriend sit tight? Your food will be out shortly." Emma tugged at my sleeve. "Mark, let's leave, please." But before we could move, a loud clunk echoed through the restaurant. The doors had been locked. "What the..." I ran to the entrance and pulled on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "You're not leaving yet," Ms. Wendy said, standing near the counter with her arms crossed. "Not until we sort this out." The lights above flickered, and the room seemed to grow colder. Emma grabbed my arm. "Mark, something's wrong. This isn't normal." I looked around. The employees weren't moving anymore. They stood frozen at their stations, their faces pale and blank. The smell of grease and old food was replaced by something metallic. "I just want to go," I said, turning back to Ms. Wendy. "Oh, you'll go," she said, stepping closer. Her voice dropped and her smile twisted into a sneer. "But first, let's make sure you get what you came for." Ms. Wendy gestured to the back of the kitchen. "Come on, let me show you where we make the magic happen." I hesitated, but two of the employees stepped forward, forcing Emma and me toward the kitchen. They didn't say a word, their eyes glassy like dolls. The back room was nothing like I'd expected. There were no normal fryers or grills. Instead, there were long tables covered in knives and saws. Buckets filled with something thick and red lined the walls. The smell was overwhelming. Emma gasped and covered her mouth. "Mark, is that blood?" Ms. Wendy laughed. "You think our burgers are famous for the beef? No, sweetie, it's all thanks to our special recipe." She grabbed a knife from the table and pointed it at us. I backed away, my heart racing. "You're insane." "Maybe," she said, stepping closer. "But I've got a business to run and you two are about to become part of the menu." Emma screamed and threw a tray at Ms. Wendy, knocking the knife from her hand. "Run, Mark!" she yelled. I grabbed her hand and we bolted for the door. The employees chased us, their chains clinking as they dragged their feet. We slammed against the front door, but it wouldn't open. Emma grabbed a chair and smashed it against the glass. It shattered, and we climbed through, cutting ourselves on the shards. Behind us, Ms. Wendy stood in the doorway, her red hair wild and her face twisted with rage. "You can run, but you'll never escape me," she screamed. We didn't stop running until we reached a gas station a few blocks away. The workers there called the police, but when they arrived at the Wendy's, the place was empty. No blood, no strange kitchen, no Ms. Wendy. To this day, I don't know what we saw that night. All I know is that I'll never eat at Wendy's again. My name is Jacob. I used to work as an electrician, but life wasn't kind to me. The pay was low, the hours were long, and eventually I had to quit. Bills piled up, and I needed to find something fast. That's when I saw a hiring sign at a Wendy's down the road. I thought, why not? It's temporary. On my first day, I met the manager, Mr. Grayson. He was a tall man with a strange smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Welcome, Jacob," he said, his voice slow and deliberate. His grip was cold when we shook hands. The rest of the staff barely talked except for Lisa, a quiet girl who worked the counter. That evening, while cleaning tables, I noticed Mr. Grayson staring at the security cameras. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't answer. Instead, he turned to me and said, "We're a family here, Jacob. Just remember, everyone must pull their weight." His words gave me an odd feeling, but I brushed it off. I told myself it was just first-day nerves. Little did I know, Wendy's wasn't just a place for burgers and fries. It was a place where nightmares would come to life. 2 weeks into the job, things started to feel off. Mr. Grayson had a habit of sneaking up behind people and watching them work. One night, he asked me to stay late. "We need some extra cleaning done," he said. I didn't want to upset my new boss, so I agreed. After closing, the restaurant was eerily quiet. Lisa had left hours ago, and it was just me and Mr. Grayson. He handed me a mop and said, "Start in the freezer." The freezer was huge, almost like a walk-in room. As I cleaned, I noticed something strange, a foul smell like rotting meat. "Hey, Mr. Grayson, something smells weird in here," I called out. He appeared in the doorway, his face shadowed under the dim light. "Just clean it, Jacob," he said sharply. Then he locked the freezer door behind me. Panic set in as I banged on the door. "Hey, what's going on?" His voice came through the small vent. "You're fine, just making sure you're thorough." I stayed there for what felt like hours, shivering and terrified until he finally let me out. When I got home that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong with Mr. Grayson, and with Wendy's. The next day, Lisa approached me during her break. "Jacob, can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked over her shoulder, checking if Mr. Grayson was around. "Sure. What's up?" I said. "Have you noticed strange things here? Like the cameras? Or how he always locks the freezer?" she asked nervously. I nodded. "Yeah, last night he locked me in there for hours." Lisa's face went pale. "You're not the first. Some employees have just disappeared. They never come back to pick up their last paycheck or anything." My heart sank. "What are you saying, Lisa? That Mr. Grayson has something to do with it?" "I don't know," she replied, tears welling up. "But I've heard noises coming from the basement at night. Screams, Jacob, real screams." That evening, I stayed late again, determined to find out what was going on. As I passed the basement door, I heard it, a faint, muffled cry for help. I waited until Mr. Grayson was distracted in his office. My hands shook as I turned the knob to the basement door. It creaked open, revealing a dark staircase. The air was damp and heavy as I descended. At the bottom, I saw something that froze me in place. Chains hanging from the walls, tools scattered on a table, and bloodstains on the floor. In the corner, a young man was tied up, barely conscious. "Help me," he whispered. Before I could react, a hand grabbed my shoulder. I spun around to see Mr. Grayson, his face twisted in anger. "What are you doing down here?" he growled. "You're sick," I shouted. I'm calling the cops." He laughed, a cold, empty sound. "You think they'll believe you? You're just another desperate guy looking for work. No one cares about people like you." He lunged at me and we struggled. Somehow I managed to grab one of the tools and swing it. He fell, groaning in pain. I didn't wait to see if he was okay. I grabbed the tied-up man and ran, and we burst out of the basement and into the night. The man I rescued was too weak to run, so I called the police. As we waited, I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting Mr. Grayson to come after us. When the cops arrived, I told them everything. They stormed into the restaurant and arrested Mr. Grayson. Later, they discovered evidence of multiple crimes, missing employees, bloodstains, and tools he had used to harm his victims. Lisa quit the next day, and I followed. I never wanted to step foot in a Wendy's again. Sometimes I think about the people who never made it out of that basement. I wonder how Mr. Grayson hid his evil for so long. But one thing is certain, I'll never forget the horror of that place, and I'll never ignore the feeling when something doesn't feel right again.